Evening, everybody. My name is Derek Palmaville. We are really glad to see you here. We're excited to share with you some of the information on what hopefully just might be part of a new beginning and a new career for you. Again, my name is Derek Palmaville. I'm here with my wife and Chief Operating Officer, Becky Palmaville. I've been a home inspector since 1994. And I've been teaching home inspections across the country in all lower contiguous 48 states for a while, since 2003. I served a term on the Washington State Board for home inspectors. I've done thousands of home inspections in my career in multiple states. Started out in Arizona, moved to Washington about 12 years ago. And I've been licensed in multiple states. I've been a business owner. I've done executive management in the insurance industry. And training and development and exam preparation for insurance exams, real estate exams, home inspector exams have been a big part of my entire career since day one. I've taught at the InterNACHI conference in Las Vegas, so kind of been around the block a few times when it comes to home inspections. My partner in crime, Becky Palmaville, she's not going to be coming on screen tonight. She assures me that she does not need to be on screen. Something about makeup and hair, I don't know. She has degrees in education, history, Spanish, and a couple of years ago, she got her doctorate in law. She's done public speaking through Dale Carnegie, through Toastmasters, both professionally and competitively. And she has a real passion for education and communications. She homeschooled 10 children. Several are now in the medical industry as caregivers, nurses, and technicians. And our goal here tonight is to share with you as much as we possibly can and what little time that we have about the basic steps to becoming a home inspector. And many of the reasons why it's done the way it's done is we can squeeze into such a short period of time. You notice how everyone's microphone is muted, like I was mentioning earlier. And that's merely for the sake of time, since no one has to be distracted by everyone else's background noise, and so we keep everybody muted on these webinars. If we're in a real classroom setting, of course, it'd be a lot more interactive and everybody stay muted, but everybody have the ability to unmute and ask a question. So tonight's focus is to give you an overview without any interruption. That way you can take all the notes that you need to take and all that good stuff. Each of you, however, does have access to the chat window. And the chat window is where you can ask questions along the way. Becky is manning the chat window. She will also be posting little tidbits and stuff in there. When there's a website for you to look at, she's going to copy and paste that in there so you can copy and paste it into your browser, and take a look at whatever it is that we're pointing out to you. So she's going to be posting little tidbits along the way, fun facts, stuff like that. And we'll be dedicating a few minutes at the end to answer questions from the chat as best we can. So like I said, Becky's going to be on them. Take a lot of notes if you need to, but as long as everything turns out with the recordings, technologically speaking, the recorded presentation from tonight will also be posted to our YouTube channel the next day or so. Oh, and one more thing. Be sure to stay with us to the very end, because that's where we're going to give you some very special detailed information on the offers that we're presenting to you tonight. And they're offers for tuition and special classes only available to you because you attended the webinars. So, well, we didn't come here to learn about me and all this other good stuff, so let's just jump right into it. The first thing that we need to discuss is just exactly what a home inspection is. So let's see, let me go ahead here, and I forgot to do this. I'm going to go ahead and share this screen. There we go. Perfect. So can everybody see the slide on the screen? Everybody see that now? No slide on the screen? Ooh, okay, let's try this. Share the screen and how about now? Do we have a, black. It's black. Okay, it's not showing up. That's really odd. This would also be bad. Okay. Okay, can you see it now? It should be on there. Okay, very good. All right, looks like we've got a couple of thumbs up out there. Awesome. Okay, so there we go. What is a home inspection? Well, we're going to use buying a car as an analogy to compare to buying a home. Because really, buying a car is and buying a home, they're not exactly the same, but they're quite similar. Okay. If the car buying experience were like buying a home, you'd be hiring somebody to go to the dealership with you and do a whole bunch of things like check the tire pressure, the fluids, look underneath for leaks, inspect chassis for possible hidden damage, stuff like that, and check various operating temperatures, and then test the vehicle under various types of driving conditions. And ideally, that person that goes to the dealership with you would provide a written report detailing their findings and making a recommendation for what to do about the deficiencies. Well, Thank goodness buying a car isn't that complex. The experience is stressful enough without adding that kind of inspection into the mix, wouldn't you agree? But buying a home is more complex, and it can be a stressful time with much higher stakes. And because of the higher stakes, you see, the median purchase price of a home is about $270,000, while the median price of a new car is only about $45,000. So that makes a house 6 times more expensive. Add to this how we own a home 2 to 3 times longer than a car, and how we spend so much more time in our home than our cars, and you can start to see why it's so much more important to learn as much as possible about a house before we buy it. So that's why a home inspector will spend 2 to 3 hours looking at all of the relevant systems components of a home and documenting deficiencies in the report and making recommendations to repair or replace the affected components. Now, as a result, the client receives valuable information. It helps them make a more informed purchase decision. And the real value of the home inspection is right there. It's not in the list of deficiencies. The value of a home inspection to the buyer, it comes from knowing that an expert went through the entire house, front to back, top to bottom, and during those 2 to 3 hours, did not find anything earth-shattering about the house. It's called peace of mind. I mean, how many of us can realistically place a dollar value on peace of mind, right? So to be qualified to provide this level of peace of mind and really begin adding value to others' residential real estate transactions, you'll need the right education and training. And that's where it all starts, okay? Now, this is usually the point where we get that question. It's a very important question, a very common question that we get from folks about whether somebody has to have experience in the construction trades in order to become a home inspector. And the answer to the question is a really simple answer. It's no, not at all. We've personally seen graduates from all sorts of backgrounds study and go on to be very successful home inspectors, from truck drivers to architects, engineers, mechanics, painters, accountants, salespeople, food service, and hospitality employees, and a whole bunch more. Like I said, I've been teaching since 2003. I've taught thousands of students, and I've seen folks from just about every industry imaginable come in and take the class and go on to be successful home inspectors. Personally, I was an insurance agent when I started my career back in 1994. Oh, and I was also diagnosed with, as an adult, with ADD, but after I started doing home inspections. And I've been blind in my right eye since I was 8 years old. So, and seriously, I'm not kidding. So for several years, though, I still managed to perform an average of 450 to 500 inspections a year. So if a half-blind ADD insurance agent can be successful in this industry, anyone can. Don't let anyone tell you different. You don't have to come from the trades. And that's because a quality home inspection course includes all the technical training needed for anyone to be able to inspect and provide a good, thorough understanding of the basics and fundamentals so you can be technically adept no matter what your background is. But if you do have experience in the construction industry, sure, that's going to be a big plus. You won't get bored in our class, being forced to listen to lectures on components that you already know, because you'll learn how to assess them from the perspective of a home inspector, which is actually quite a bit different from what you might expect, not an installer or a builder. So trust me, there is a big difference, and we do teach them that. So it's going to be interesting for everybody from all trades and all walks of life. And even the most experienced contractor's knowledge base is limited compared to what a home inspector needs to know. And I know this might be kind of tough for some of you who come from the trades. The truth is, though, that home inspectors inspect homes that as new as completed yesterday to as old as 200 years all the time. I mean, that's going to be a part of your career, spanning across, whether it's 3 or 4 years you do home inspections or you do them for the next 25 or 30 years, okay? That means that a home inspector has to be familiar with how homes have been built over the last 200 years. Not just the last 25 or 30, okay? So there's a bigger breadth of knowledge that you have to have. In addition, no matter which school you choose, and of course, we're hoping it's HI-TEC, of course, you need to learn more than just the technical. You have to learn how to perform the home inspection with a good quality procedure and how to communicate your findings in a non-alarming way, both verbally and in written form. What do we mean when we say that the findings have to be communicated in a non-alarming manner? Well, to put it simply, we don't want to become known for busting up deals over simple things that can be readily repaired or replaced as home inspectors, especially when it represents normal wear and tear, or it's a product or technology that wasn't in existence when the house was built. So for example, an older house without GFCI outlets in the kitchen, well, that doesn't mean instant death the second time somebody plugs in the toaster or turns on a coffee pot, but a quality home inspector will recommend installing those GFCIs as protection in the kitchen for the buyer for enhanced safety. Okay, so there is a difference in that perspective. The home inspector has to learn how to communicate the findings in the right perspective so as not to scare the daylights out of the client unnecessarily. And it's this perspective that makes the difference between home inspectors who do 500 home inspections a year or just 125. It's that alarmist mentality. And that's why we spend so much time in your class throughout your training, teaching you how to put everything into the proper perspective for your client. Now, why is this skill of communicating everything in the right perspective so important? It's an important one, and we discuss it quite a bit in the class because our business is one of referrals. It's a relationship-oriented business. The real estate agents refer us to the clients 90% of the time. We don't want you to get the idea here, though, that agents expect us to sell the house for them. What you need to know is that the agents aren't likely to refer alarmist home inspectors to their clients. We don't have to sell the house, but they don't want us busting up all their transactions either. It's a topic that we discuss. There's a line. It's a fine line, and you have to learn how to walk it. We discuss it throughout the training course. We weave it in throughout all of the training for the entire time that we're together. Oops. So lastly, you need to learn the marketing aspect of the business. Okay. In today's digital world, the assumption is that a website and search engine optimization are critical to any business's success. Well, while that's certainly true for a lot of businesses, in the home inspection world, you need more. In fact, I would say that your website and your digital presence are secondary or even tertiary, third to everything else. Okay, because what we do is relationship-oriented marketing. In the old days, guys used to come to my class and say, oh yeah, I spent all this money on my Yellow Pages ads, man, and I'm just going to be rocking it this time next year. And you call them up and they're like, yeah, the Yellow Page ads get me maybe 2 or 3 inspections a year. Okay, so you need to think of, Google and the website and all that stuff is kind of like the Yellow Pages in the old days. They don't work. It's all relationship-based marketing with real estate agents. Without the knowledge of both ends of the spectrum, you're not fully equipped to play the long and the short game of building a business. So you have to learn how to do the technical stuff, how to communicate it to your client, and how to do the marketing. Now, right about now, you might be asking yourself, well, it all sounds good, but what's the risk? Because I know some of you may have even talked to some other folks and heard that, home inspectors get sued. Okay, well, business owners get sued across the country all the time. I wouldn't say that home inspectors are a whole lot different, okay? But a responsible business owner is going to act responsibly and learn how to mitigate the risk. Okay, so let's address those questions. We'll put risk in the right perspective for you. Risk is part of going into any business, and it doesn't always have to result in a lawsuit. So here's a simple analogy for you. I remember a time when Burger King put mustard on my burger, even though I specifically asked them not to, okay? Theoretically, because I paid for something I didn't get, a burger with no mustard. I could go down to the local courthouse and file a lawsuit against that restaurant and the entire franchise company and ask the court to make them liable to me for $1 million because it made me nauseous. Well, how likely am I to collect though? And how much is that lawsuit going to cost me and cost Burger King? And how much am I really going to collect, if at all? Okay. In reality, most of us are just going to take that mustard contaminated burger back up to the counter. We're going to ask them to make another one and require that the restaurant take responsibility for the mistake. Anyone ever done that? I'm sure a few of you have. The risk for the restaurant is in making the mistake once in a while by not meeting the customer's expectations of the request. Mitigating the risk is collecting the bad burger, making a new one, because the cost of making a new burger is a lot less than the cost of a lawsuit. So running any service-oriented business requires this kind of mitigation occasionally. Lawsuits are, when you do something really, really stupid and you miss something really, really big, and there's just no way around it, to either file a claim on your insurance or to file a lawsuit. And insurance, we'll talk about in just a second. The key to staying profitable while mitigating your risk is to reduce the number of mistakes. This is the first step by applying everything that you learn in your initial training. Of course, HI-TEC's training is going to teach you how to lessen the chance of missing deficiencies and many other details that you need to know for managing your risk as a home inspector. So how else can we reduce our risk? Well, another way is to first form a legal entity. For example, a proper business setup. When you have a legal entity, and in the rare circumstance where someone does actually sue you, they have to sue the company, that legal entity. And having that legal entity protects your personal assets from business liabilities, because when a client sues the company, even if they win, there's very little chance that a judgment they win could be attached to your personal assets like your home. because they're suing the company and not you, the home inspector. Okay, so the first step, the next step in risk mitigation is start a legal entity. Okay, the next one, another way to reduce your risk is through insurance. Okay, when you drive a car, you're taking on risk, and that's why we have automobile insurance. Well, business liabilities can be protected by insurance too. There are two basic types that you need to understand when you're going into a service-oriented business, more specifically, of course, home inspections. The first is general liability. It protects your company against claims of damage to someone through the normal course of doing business. So for example, you're coming out of the attic over the garage and you drop your flashlight, you break the windshield, dent the hood on the car, okay? General liability is gonna pay for damage to their car minus your deductible if you file a claim. You know, something like that. I guess if it's a Ferrari, you're probably gonna have to file a claim. If, you know, it's a 1978 Pinto, you know, with a bunch of rust on it and two brown doors, well, you can probably pay for that one out of your pocket. So there's time to use the insurance and then there's time not to. What general liability insurance won't protect you against, though, are damages resulting from making a mistake on the home inspection or leaving something critical out of the report. Okay, so if, for example, you miss a hole in the roof in your inspection report, and the next time it rains, the client suffers $15,000 in water damage. General liability is not going to cover you for that damage to the client's home because it's a mistake, it's an error. You omitted it from the report. So that's what errors and omission insurance is going to cover. Think of it as malpractice insurance for home inspectors. Any responsible service provider is going to have errors and omissions insurance. Okay? All sorts of industries have it. Hairdressers have it, insurance agents have it, real estate agents have it. Errors and omissions insurance is critical for any service-oriented business. So finally, you also do want to check with your auto insurance carrier, okay? Make sure you got the right coverage for your vehicle. Using your vehicle for part of your business is a little bit different risk as far as the insurance company is concerned than what most other folks are going to carry. So you want to make sure that you've got the right coverage for that. So anyone thinking to themselves, oh my gosh, man, that sounds expensive. Well, relax, because general liability and errors and omissions insurance are not cost prohibitive anymore like they used to be. 15, 20 years ago, I was spending, you know, probably 80, 90% more than I do now. Usually a small down payment and a small monthly premium payment of less than one home inspection fee is all it takes to get the coverages that you need. Everyone getting all this? Becky's going to be putting a link to a video coming up pretty soon here about, or if she hasn't done it already, a link to a video talking about insurance for home inspectors. So now that we've learned about education requirements and tips to mitigate the risk, we should address the timeline. Okay, how long does it take before you can start making money? Well, you've probably been wanting to ask that question since the very beginning, right? Well, in the true spirit of answering questions, we could just say, it depends on how badly you want it, dude. But that really isn't much of an answer, is it? Education, as we discussed earlier, is a necessary first step, and the time required to complete the course is determined by a couple of things, okay? The first question to answer is whether your state requires licensing for professional home inspector. If it doesn't, like California, for example, you could literally grab a clipboard and a flashlight and start performing home inspections tomorrow. Talk about risky, right? But we still recommend getting the education. And by the way, California has a law that says if you're going to be a home inspector, you got to act like a home inspector and prepare to be a home inspector. It's a law in the books. Kind of weird. There's a lot more, though, to being a home inspector than just knowing the difference between steel and plastic plumbing in a house. So you want to take a good quality class. Next, if licensing is required in your state, you need to know how many hours of education they require. That could be anywhere from 40 to 120 hours or more. Okay, so those of you in California, 0. Right? No licensing. Oregon, they have licensing, but I think it's like only 60 hours. And Washington, that's 120 hours. New York, 100 hours. I think Texas, they finally reduced theirs down to 154. So it's different in every single state. So how long the class lasts, how many hours you have to get, that's going to affect your timeline. The third factor affecting the timeline is whether your state requires you to attend a live class or if they'll accept an online or what they call a distance learning class. With live classes, you're kind of at the mercy of the beginning and the end of the actual training based on the schedule from the school that you choose. With distance learning, all right, at least you can get started right away, but you're limited by the number of hours you can dedicate to it each day until completed. So again, it's going to be up to you and what your study habits are. Most of our students finish the online or what we call the LMS experience in about 2 to 3 weeks with full-time effort. 45 to 90 days doing it part-time. An additional element you need to know is whether your state requires a field training component to get your license, okay? If so, is it required in hours, or is it required the number of inspections, or is it both? And I'll use Washington again as an example, because that's our home state, Washington. Washington requires a minimum of 5 homes in 40 hours, okay? So pretty much comes out to 40 hours. Not too hard to squeeze 5 homes into 40 hours. But every state is going to be different, and it would take several hours to review each of the 35 states' licensing requirements. So boring, not going there tonight. In fact, if you do have licensing questions, like I said, you can call us. But we can help answer your questions. We'll give you all the licensing details when you call us. And another option is to use the link to your state's details from the enroll page on our website. Okay, just go to our website, teachinghitech.com, click on enroll. All the states are listed right there, and you can look it up. We'll link you up directly to your state's licensing authority. The last timeline factor that we'll talk about has to do with whether you're going to be going into your new career full or part-time. Many home inspectors begin their career part-time so that they can keep their day job income while they're building the business in their spare time. So if you're going to do it that way, expect it to take about 2 years to get to where you could quit your day job and actually do home inspections full-time. For those of you wanting to dive right in and build a business right away, with the right marketing efforts, you could reasonably expect to do about 125 inspections in the first year and as many as 300 a year in year 2 and 400 to 500 every year after that, as long as you keep doing the marketing that we teach you. And that cuts your timeline in about half. And those are realistic expectations and results, okay? So once you've received your education in states with the licensing laws, you'll almost certainly have to pass the National Home Inspector exam. That's a big one. It's a 200-question professional examination in multiple choice format. You're given 4 hours to take it, and a passing score is considered adequate demonstration of minimum competency. And when you choose your school, you want to be sure to ask whether the curriculum covers exam preparation and how that material is relevant to the exam. HI-TEC's curriculum uses the textbooks authored by the National Home Inspector Exam Board. These are the people who write the exam. If they wrote these books, okay, they are the most relevant textbooks in the industry. We add to it rather, our insights and experience and wisdom from almost 30 years in the industry. So our students get the best of both worlds, all the technical for passing the exam and all the skills to inspect, report, and communicate from our wisdom and our experience. And once you've completed the first 3 steps, then you can send your application into the state and get your license. You get the education, you get the field training, pass the exam. That's pretty much all it takes, okay? It sounds kind of simple, takes a few weeks in most cases, maybe a little bit longer in some states. But the idea is to overcome those hurdles as quickly as possible and retain as much of the information as you possibly can. So we've covered education, we've covered basic licensing requirements and typical timelines. So I bet by now, you're probably wondering how much all this costs, right? Well, to sum up the numbers that you see on your screen, starting a home inspection business is a relatively low upfront or startup cost. When you compare it to national franchises, especially home inspection franchises or other business opportunities. I just looked into it the other day, just out of curiosity. Just a few weeks ago, we're standing there at the UPS store and there's like 30 people crammed into this tiny little store and they all want to mail a box. And I looked over our wife and said, you know what, we got to look into this. It's like, because we got our box at the UPS store like 3.5 years ago when this gal just opened. We were like one of our first customers to get a box, and nobody was in there. The first few weeks going there, nobody's ever in there. Now we go in there and the line's out the door. I'm like, that's guaranteed success. How much is that? So we're just driving the car. Becky looks it up. She says, oh, it's about $500,000 to invest. $500,000 to get into a UPS store franchise. So, okay, maybe that's a little bit out of our league. Home inspection franchises, 75 to 100,000. Yeah. And generally the investment to start up your own home inspection business, though, is less than 10 grand. And that means you can literally start your business on a shoestring budget. You can recoup your initial investment quickly. The way to look at it is to divide the investment by the average fee that you expect to charge to see how many inspections you need to do to get all of your money back. All right. So if your investment, and the average investment really is more like $8,200 to $8,300 for most guys. I use 10,000 because it makes the math a little bit easier. And if your investment is 10,000 or less to start up the business, keep in mind, not all that's up front or at once. Okay. We're talking total startup costs in your first year would be about 10 grand. and the average fee in your area is $450, then you only need to do 22 inspections to fully recoup your initial investment on the business startup cost. 22 inspections, okay? Considering how each of those inspections was only a 2.5-hour job, well, that's less than 63 hours of work. Now, how much do you make right now? In 2 weeks, it's your current full-time job, okay? See the difference? And that's why we get so excited when we talk about the home inspection opportunity, you know, because I learned this and I saw this opportunity 30 years ago. And this was back when nobody knew what a home inspector was. You could start for a lot less if you go to work for a multi-inspector firm, but there are drawbacks to being employed by somebody else. First, you still have to buy your own tools. You got to pay for your own mistakes, and your schedule is not going to be as flexible, and you won't be able to schedule inspections around your personal life, making it, just kids soccer tournaments, ball games, and band recital, stuff like that's gonna be a little more difficult because they do kind of expect you to work 12 to 14-hour days, and your day could end up 60 miles away from home. So second, expect to get paid only a 30 to 50% commission on the inspections you do if you go to work for a multi-inspector firm. That's much less than if you own the business, okay? So third, expect you're required to either sign a non-compete agreement or an employment contract, holding you accountable should you decide to quit once you've benefited from your employer's training and insights into the business. See, it's a big investment for a company to bring somebody new into the fold and train them. And they want to recoup their investment and they want to increase their profits. And you do that by retaining employees. That's just business economics 101. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So when researching schools, ask them to quantify how their curriculum prepares you for the career path that you want, independent or employee. Okay. The good news is at HI-TEC, we'll prepare you for either one. If you're going to go to work for somebody else or if you're going to open up your own business, you're going to be prepared when you take our course one way or the other. Okay. So how much money will I make? That's probably the second most common question that we get after, how do I get into business? So while you're not going to be the next Bill Gates, you're not going to be the next Warren Buffett, okay, as a home inspector. At least nobody's done that yet. The income potential is certainly likely to be more than you'd make in corporate America or pounding nails for somebody else's construction company. When you look at the numbers, independent home inspectors do an average of 305 inspections per year at an average of about $400 to $450 for every single home inspection you do. Now, that means before expenses, which are going to be about 15%, about 15% overhead. That's it. That's all it takes to run this business. Some sources say that the average home inspector only makes $70,000, but if you're going to do 300 inspections a year at $450 a piece, that's $137,000. That's more average. See, I don't want you to get confused about this because, if you look this up by the Bureau of Labor, what is it? The Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Yeah. They're going to say, well, a home inspector makes 70 grand. Yeah, but see, that comes from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and they categorize home inspectors and building inspectors into one category. So in other words, independent home inspectors averaging $135,000 per year are lumped in to that category with government employees on hourly wages visiting construction sites for compliance. Okay, it really bad number to follow. The numbers that I'm sharing with you not only are from personal experience and the experience of my students, but they come from insurance companies who sell errors and omissions insurance to home inspectors. They track those statistics, and that's where we got the numbers, okay? They're the folks, they provide insurance to thousands of home inspectors across the US. They track those statistics, and I got a buddy in insurance, in the insurance world for home inspectors, and he gave me the statistics. So even better than income. Some of our most successful graduates will tell you that the icing on the cake is how much they enjoy performing home inspections. It's an honest business where you'll go home each and every day knowing in your heart how you helped as many as 3 families make a better decision and avoid costly surprises and safety hazards in that critical first year of owning a home. You're the hero of the day. And it's the best feeling in the world right after that feeling you get when you answer the phone and you hear for the very first time, yeah, I need to schedule a home inspection. That's a very addictive sound. Trust me on that one. So here's an example. I recently did an inspection where the buyer was an elderly woman in her late 70s. She liked the house because everything about it looked typical, even above average for some things, because there was fresh paint throughout the interior. Appliances were all polished and stainless steel, shiny. The carpets had been recently shampooed. But after 3 hours in the house, I uncovered structural issues with the roof and how the cabinets, appliances, countertops were not adequately secured or installed throughout the house, and how many of the major systems components were at the end of their typical life expectancies, like the water heater, the furnace, the air conditioning. So they need a replacement pretty soon. So if we had to guess, we'd probably estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 just to make the house livable past the next couple of months. So of course the client, wasn't too happy, but she was very grateful that I did a good thorough job because she neither had the money nor the ability to make so many repairs. She was in her 70s. So she purchased a different house in better condition about a week or two later. And I remember thinking afterwards, well, I don't like it when the inspection busts up the deal. In fact, I hate it because I'm always afraid that the agent's going to get upset at me. Most of the time, the agent doesn't get upset, okay? I was excited for the client, though, because I helped her avoid repairs whose costs were likely to bankrupt her, and she got into a better house, okay? So that's just one of the many rewarding things about being a home inspector. And finally, the priceless aspect to owning your own home inspection business is the lifestyle that it affords us. Someone once told me that money doesn't buy you happiness, but it does buy you freedom. Talk to any independent home inspector who's been in the business for 3 or more years, okay? They'll tell you how they love the flexibility of scheduling their work around their life. Whereas when they work for someone else or they own another business like a construction firm, they had to schedule their life around work. The business runs them. Now, we left the lifestyle of letting our careers, Becky and I, run our business, or run our lives rather, behind. We left that behind years ago. We couldn't be happier about having made that choice because one of the most rewarding things about teaching home inspections is I get to teach others how to take control of their lives. And it's exciting for me. That's why I think I'm addicted to teaching as much as I am doing home inspections. Now, how many of you realistically know another business where you can get started for less than $10,000 and by the second year pull down a 6-figure income and have that much fun and fulfillment doing it, right? How do you know you're choosing the right school? Okay, that's a big question that usually comes up at this point too. How do you know you're choosing the right school? Because you probably know about as much as choosing a home inspection school as you do about home inspection. So it'd be easy to just say, call us and don't call anybody else, okay? But we know that doesn't fly with people anymore. Well, basically because we have so much research capability, at our fingertips these days with the internet. So what we also know is how it's a lot of work researching and interviewing schools. And as much as we want you to choose HI-TEC, we know most of you probably wouldn't make a decision without research careful consideration first, but you'd kind of like to narrow your focus a little bit. So when shopping for a school, here's what you need to know. One, every training company out there will teach the technical, okay? But is it up to date? It's a critical question you absolutely have to ask your school. What are the copyright dates on your textbooks, and are they the latest version available? Okay, building requirements change in a 3-year cycle. Codes change every 3 years. Outdated materials will not only fall short on content, but could actually teach you the wrong details. Ask what the copyright date is on their materials and when their self-authored materials were last updated. Their slides and their self-authored textbooks and stuff like that. Ours were just updated with the latest code revisions. Okay. Second thing is, learning how not to be an alarmist is only one aspect of developing your communication style as a home inspector. Be sure to ask if they teach the necessary communication skills for working daily with agents, clients, contractors, sellers, potential clients. There's a lot of communication involved here. In fact, you do a lot more communicating than you do inspecting as a home inspector. We weed that throughout the entire training, and we are really strong on the communication side of it, every bit as strong as we are on the technical side of it. Next thing is, how good is their exam prep? That's a big one. Some of the schools you call, they'll brag about their thousands of pages of self-authored materials, and then show you how they provide the National Home Inspector exam books, the volumes 1 and 2 that I showed you a few minutes ago. They'll show you, they'll say, look, we also give you this. So ask them, okay, if your self-authored stuff is so effective, what's the point in making me buy another 1,800 pages of reading material? Okay, ask them that question. Trust me, that much information is overkill. Their answer is probably gonna be something really silly like, well, our textbook teaches you how to be a home inspector. The other books are just for exam prep. Okay, so I've got to read 3,200 pages to learn how to be a home inspector. The answer is no, you don't, okay? And another good question to ask there is, well, then why not put all of that into one book? You'll probably find their response is pretty amusing. So we offer the National Home Inspector Exam textbooks, and that's it. That, and on top of all the online stuff that we do, because it's all you need. Doesn't it make sense to offer just what you need instead of a whole bunch of fluff, just for the sake of making it appear more valuable? Home inspectors think more information is good, so they lump all this information on people to say, look how valuable it is. I bet you can't even carry all this home now. That doesn't necessarily mean good. You can't fall for that hype. Instructor qualifications, they go beyond technical pedigree and experience, okay? Being successful as a home inspector does not automatically carry over into the classroom. When choosing someone to train you for your next career, you need someone you can gel with, you can get along with, and you can learn from. So ask to speak to the actual instructor who will be teaching your class. At the very least, they should have a sample of their training for you to review, like we have on our website, where you can experience firsthand each instructor's delivery style, okay? Ask for graduate references too. Once you have at least 3 references, ask each one of them what they learned, whether what they learned in class is relevant and meaningful, okay? Ask them that question, you know, and listen to their tone of voice when they answer the question. In other words, did it work when they went out into the real world? What did the graduate like? What do they like the most? What do they like the least about their training? Those are very important questions to ask. I know they sound kind of cliche, like an interview, but you are interviewing them, right? So, and number 6, this is a big one because not many schools do, so many schools do this rather. Ask if they give an in-class sales pitch for more materials, okay? If so, why not talk about it before you get into class so you can make the best decision now, right? Ask whether those hours spent giving you a sales pitch in class for things like, you know, computer programs, tools, stuff like that are part of the education hours. Are you taking up education hours part of the state? So a lot of states prohibit that, okay? But a lot of schools do it anyway. It's a very important question to ask. Lecturing, number 7, on all the technical stuff, teaching communication skills, then putting a pat on the back saying, go get them, Tiger. Well, that's not enough to help you launch a successful business. Ask the training company if every instructor teaches the marketing of a home inspection business in every single class. This is a big one. Many of them don't, okay? Finally, don't fall for the marketing hype, okay? Now, this is a big one. Those big schools, they say they have more than 70 live training locations, right? But ask them what that means. Okay? You may be surprised to know that they're so-called locations, 70 of them, they're actually just hotel meeting rooms. Or they're leased classrooms at a tech college campus. And their other claims that you should be wary of are the so-called college and university affiliations. The affiliation is usually nothing more than their arrangement to lease a classroom on the campus, but it makes it look or appear as though the curriculum is sanctioned by the college, when in fact it's not. These schools are not likely to be accredited, okay? But they try to make it appear as though they are, okay? That's a lot of fluff, it's a lot of hype, and it's, you know, you need to be able to push that stuff aside and, you know, narrow your focus when you're choosing the school to the important things, okay? Because it doesn't matter if they have 1 location or 1,000. How well do they teach? How well do they get the information across for you, okay? Make them define their terms by asking a lot of questions, okay? And whether it's full or part-time, HI-TEC's training is beyond adequate, okay? It's simply the best educational program you're going to find. Your instructor is engaging, makes the mundane material memorable, ensures every student learns the materials. And if you're a methodical learner who takes notes, makes checklists, puts a tab on every page of your book, or if you're the kind of learner whose books look like they were dipped in highlighter ink, or if you just need to sit back and listen to someone share a wealth of knowledge, then HI-TEC is the school for you, because we work to, I guess you could say, target as many of the learning styles out there as possibly can. You know, the visual, the auditory, all that good stuff. Even a hands-on learner is going to learn from HI-TEC every bit as much as anyone else, because we do the live field training, right? For states like Washington, et cetera, et cetera. We do this because we understand adult education. We understand how our students are unique individuals. So to sum up HI-TEC's qualifications, we have the experience, we have the style, we have the education, the know-how to train you for your new career. We never give you a sales pitch in class, only relevant information that you need to be a success. That's all you're going to learn about in class, okay? We'll even give support after you graduate with access to our instructors through our LMS online discussion board when you need additional answers. That's whether you're prepping for your exam or performing a home inspection, because your success is our success. It's how we give you that high ground advantage, okay? So before we move on, and we are getting, you know, kind of close to the end, so let's take a look at what we've learned so far, okay? Oops, I forgot to show you guys this one last slide here, or the most recent slide. So there you go. There's everything summed up. So what have we learned so far? We've learned what a home inspection is, okay? What's a home inspection? It's a thorough kicking the tires, checking the fluids, test drive, and a written report. If you were to compare it to a car, that's what the home inspection is. What does it take to be qualified to be a home inspector? We got to have the right education. And the education has to include the technical, it has to include the communications, it has to include the exam prep, and it has to include the marketing. Without those, all four of those things, you cannot successfully start a home inspection business. So the qualification starts with the proper education, okay? Risk management, that's a big one. And it's something that a lot of us tend to overlook when we go into business. We overlook the risk factor and maybe don't, mitigate our risk as well as we could, or think about it enough to mitigate it as well as we could. And when we teach this stuff in class, it can sometimes seem like the instructor is saying, yeah, you're going to get sued, so you better be careful, right? And that's not the point that we're trying to make. The point that we're trying to make is that any responsible business owner is going to have a risk mitigation plan based on the risk inherent to their business. Like Burger King putting mustard on a hamburger when it was requested not to be on there, or God forbid, salmonella in the pudding, whatever it is. Risk management is something that is definitely required to get into the home inspection business. And if you're going to go to work for somebody else, never assume that they have the right kind of insurance. Always ask. Okay? You should ask that question up front. We learn what the investment is in the business. Typically, you can get into home inspection in the home inspection business for less than a $10,000 investment. Okay. Now, I'm not trying to minimize how much $10,000 is. Certainly, it's a lot of money. Okay. And I remember thinking 30 years ago, because it actually almost cost me 10 grand to get in the business 30 years ago. I remember thinking that's a lot of money, and I didn't have it. I had young kids and all that other good stuff. But I am saying that compared to other businesses, as far as what that upfront cost is versus, the short-term income potential within a couple of years, that's a pretty good number. That's a really good number. Okay. So the income potential, that's the other thing we talked about. Be careful about going to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and looking at those numbers, because they kind of lump multiple careers, jobs into one or two categories. And with what they have, on their website, the fact that it's building contractors. When I said that it's government employees making an hourly wage to go out and look at construction sites, those are, the city inspectors that come out to inspect and make sure the contractors do their job. Those guys only make about $50,000 to $60,000 a year. So when you throw in the average home inspector, it's going to skew the numbers quite a bit. So it's funny too, because I posted an article about this on Facebook a few weeks back, and a bunch of home inspectors, got on there and said, yeah, boy, am I glad I'm not average, because I said the average income is 60 to 70,000, at least that's what's reported. So what proper education looks like. Okay. We looked at that too. Okay. What should your education look like? It should include, and the technical, it should include the technical, the communication, the risk management, the marketing. It should include all of that stuff. Okay. And if it doesn't have all of that in there, you could be selling yourself short on your career. And then finally, you got to take the National Home Inspector exam. Okay. Most states require licensing. I think it's 35 or 36 states require licensing for home inspectors. And every state that has a licensing law requires you to take the National Home Inspector exam. There's two exceptions. Texas and Florida, I think, are the two states that have a different exam, or they'll accept a different exam, but they're pretty much the same exam. Okay. So you got to take that exam. It's a professional level exam. It's part of what we do now. I took an exam, actually it was a lot tougher back in '94. It was the American Society of Home Inspectors exam. I had to take their entrance exam to join their association, and it's pretty much what the National Home Inspector exam turned into many years later. So the exam has always been around basically as long as I've been in business, and it's going to be a part of your preparation for your career. I take it every year. And the reason I take it every year is kind of funny too, because I'll mention that on a social media post or something like that. And somebody always asks me, why do you take it every year? What are you, glutton for punishment? No. What I am is just an instructor who likes to be prepared for the students. I do not want to take any chances. So that's what we've covered. That's what we've learned so far. And right about now, you're probably wanting to know something like, well, how much do you cost? Did I guess that one right? So since we're running short on time, I want to ask everyone, is it okay if I share with you a special package that we put together that answers that question? Is everybody okay with that? Because, if you're not okay with that, that's fine. I'll go home, because my life doesn't change. but okay. All right, cool. I got a few thumbs up there. Very nice. By the way, how's everybody feeling? Anybody feeling like you're drinking from a fire hose? I know I was going pretty quick there for a while. Sorry about that. The students will often tell us that they kind of feel like they're drinking from a fire hose too, when we're going through the class. That's okay. We're still going to help you retain it. So Becky told me to slow down a few minutes ago, so I slowed down the pace because it's going a little bit too fast. So here's what we want to offer everyone tonight. When you invest in one of our live class offerings, okay, daytime or evening, and we'll talk about the difference between the two in a little bit, we'll put together this special package for you. We put together just in the last few days because we made some changes to our curriculum, we made some changes to our offerings. And we'll put all this together because we want to make sure that your education is complete. Now, this is for webinar attendees only, okay, just for you folks tonight. When you take our live course, we're going to give you our complete online training, okay? And we're going to give you that complete online training course absolutely free, okay? This is our self-paced class, okay, that some folks like to take. They like to take it because they don't feel like they need a live instructor to learn the material. It's almost as good as the live in-person class, but we all know that live is better, right? Anyone who's recorded a sporting event and then tried to make it home without hearing, the final score of the game before they could watch it knows exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? So that's why a lot of people like to take, most of our students prefer to take the live class, but there are some folks in a lot of states where they just take the self-paced course, and that's, we're throwing that in for you absolutely free. You can see right here, okay, this is part of our website, and you can see right here, right there in the middle. Actually, you can ignore the Alabama class there. We have different classes for different states, but the basic course, online only, is $8.99, okay? So that's the value that we're throwing in absolutely free. That's the price for anyone. They go on our website, they just want to take that class, they don't want to talk to anybody, just give me the class and I'll study and I'll do it on my own. They pay $8.99, okay? Everyone getting this so far? Okay, great, because we're also going to give you those National Home Inspector Exam textbooks, the e-version of those textbooks at no charge. We're throwing those in absolutely free, okay? These are the books, like I said, they're written by the National Home Inspector Exam Board. Those are the people who write the National Home Inspector Exam. So they write the exam and they write the textbooks that say, here's how to study, okay? We built our curriculum around these books, okay? Those are the ones you have to take to get licensed. They are the industry standard for preparing for the National Home Inspector Exam. They wrote the books as a means to talk about performing home inspections as a whole, and more importantly, to prepare people to pass the National Home Inspector Exam. Now, those books normally cost $150 to $200, okay? They're the industry standard for preparing for the National Home Inspector Exam. There's nothing better than those two books to prepare for the exam. We're giving away the e-version of the books for free to every student who enrolls tonight, okay? And finally, anyone who enrolls tonight will also receive in the mail, a few days after you enroll, will receive your tuition, what we call the tech kit. It's a box, you'll get it in the mail or UPS, depends. You're gonna open it up, inside you're gonna find several goodies in there, okay? One of them is gonna be the code check book. Now the code check book is a must. It's an absolute must to have to prepare for the National Home Inspector Exam. It's also a good reference that you'll want to keep with you in the vehicle at all times when you're out there doing home inspections. While we don't do code inspections, we use code as the basis for is it right or wrong, and now I know whether or not it's serving its intended purpose. So we're constantly checking codes, although we're not citing them in the report. We talk more about that in detail in the class. We usually tell our students just pick one up. Go ahead, pick one up, for your exam prep after you finish the class. But what we decided to do was to buy a stack of them, as a bonus to give away with every enrollment just from our webinar attendees tonight. So there's also in there going to be some information on where you can go to follow up for more information on your errors and omissions insurance, and a couple of basic inspection tools so you can inspect your home while you learn about inspecting home, okay? Doesn't that sound like fun? Actually, I've had a lot of students tell me it's great that they can get up from the book and go over and test something with one of their electrical testers that we gave them. So that's why we do it. We throw those electrical testers in there, the inspection mirror, stuff like that. So everyone still with me? Everybody getting this? All right, cool. I hope so, because we're about to get pretty deep into the offering and I don't want to leave anyone behind, okay? So because you've decided to take control of your future and to start this new career with the HI-TEC course, okay, you'll be able to access the online course for 90 days. So you'll have that online course for 90 days, access 24/7. It's like having a home inspector right there with you at all times. Even after and if you've already completed your online live class, okay, you'll be getting the best education in the industry because you'll have the best online materials, the industry's best textbooks, which will be the ebooks, and your class is, of course, taught by an experienced home inspector with nearly 30 years experience in the industry. So you can even inspect as you learn with the tools and the code checkbook that came in the tech kit. Okay, you'll be able to access all this. You'll be able to have all this stuff. You have the course for 90 days, and even better, when you take the class and you start your career, you'll be able to stop working every day to make other people wealthy and stop scheduling life around your work schedule. You can also stop worrying about seasonal layoffs and bad weather interrupting business. Okay, probably the biggest benefit of all when you get into the home inspection industry is you can fire your boss. I mean, how many of us would just love to walk into work tomorrow? Somebody drew on the screen. That's interesting. Please refrain from drawing on the screen, whoever that was. And I think I know who it was, but I can't say it was the chief operating officer. Maybe the biggest benefit of all is firing your boss, and because it's just so much fun. I remember that freedom that I had, that sense of freedom when I quit and I went to work for myself. That sense of freedom when you start your own business is absolutely amazing. Okay, I got to figure out how to erase that. Hold on. So annotate and clear all drawings. There we go. All right, cool. So if you called us up tomorrow and if you ordered all 3 of these items, it would cost you $1,149. Now that's a lot of money. And you wouldn't be able to take the live classes. You'd only be getting these 3 things for $1,149. You'd be on your own, basically, to absorb all the technical information. And for some of you, that's exactly what you want, and that's great. The LMS is a standalone. It's a superb class. It really is. Just ask anyone who's taken it. And it's also the best you'll find anywhere. But most of our students want the experience of a live class so they can interact with the instructor and get questions answered in real time as they go through all the materials. So for everyone else, the live class includes all of this at absolutely no extra charge. That makes sense to everybody? Okay. Give me a show of hands so I know everyone's still awake. Okay, well, we got a few people awake. All right, good. Oh, there we go. All right, we're getting a few of the clicks. Awesome, very nice. So what else do you need to be successful as a home inspector? Well, like we touched on briefly earlier, this is a relationship-based business. We have to go out and we have to meet real estate agents so we can establish those relationships. And that's how we get the referrals. And we talk about it in great detail in the class. So you'll need a marketing course like the HI-TEC Home Inspection Success Course. Whoops. It's the #1 course in the industry. It teaches you how to market yourself to the agents and how to build your business faster through time-tested and proven marketing techniques. These are things that not only I've done in my career and had them work, because we're not going to teach you anything that doesn't work. We don't make stuff up off of our head to amuse ourselves. Okay, this is stuff that I've been doing for 30 years, but it's also stuff that I've been teaching for the last 20 years. And my students have had success, some amazing success with it. Okay, the course as a standalone class goes for $499. Okay, we've had people come to us, just asking for our marketing and our exam prep courses because they took somebody else's course and they failed the exam, or they didn't get any marketing training, and they're like, well, I have a website. How come I'm not getting any business? Those folks paid $499 for this class just to learn how to build their business. Okay, and building a home inspection business isn't done the way a lot of people think it is these days. Like we talked about earlier, website, that good search engine optimization plan, it's not going to drive business to you. And this course shows you step by step how to get your business up and running as soon as possible, the right way. Okay, even if you're planning on going to work for somebody else, because even if you go to work for somebody else, they're going to want you to go out and do your marketing. You're going to have to go out and build your business, and this is how you do it. So that's why we put this in there, and we're throwing it in at absolutely no extra charge, okay? Because it should be a part of your course. Chris of New Perspective Home Inspections sat in a classroom while I taught a while back. He went through the live instructor-led class online, took his exam, started his business. Now, this is what he had to say about the marketing and the technical training. Everything you teach works. Everything you said would happen has happened. I spent 5 days marketing last week. I got 4 inspections from it this week. I feel fortunate for having the opportunity to know you and learn from a true master of the craft, which I debated about putting that last statement in there because You know, it's like, wow, that's really nice. And I don't do well with those kind of compliments. But anyway, then there's another gentleman. His name is Ryan Breitman. He owns Proper Home Inspections over in the Tri-Cities area in south central part of Washington. He was also a student of mine a few years back. He was one of the quietest students in his class. He hardly asked any questions. He just sat there in the front row, paid attention, and he took, I don't know how many notes. Like, I think he went through like, 2 notepads of notes and then 2 more. You know, it was amazing. He sat there, paid attention all day long, and just like with a lot of other students, I didn't really hear from him right away after his class was over. But I did run into him about 10 months later at the HI-TEC conference in Las Vegas. I was teaching some of the continuing education classes, the CEU classes, at the HI-TEC conference at the Flamingo in Vegas. He walked up to me and said, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, "Wow, you look familiar." It had been 10 months since I took the class. 10 months after he took the class, he'd done almost 100 inspections already. And now, here we are, 9 years later. He has a multi-inspector firm. He does 500 inspections a year personally, and each of his 3 inspectors do about 400 inspections each, all in the Tri-Cities area in Washington State. They got a pretty big area, a pretty big radius. I mean, 500, 1,200, that's 1,700 inspections a year. Do the math, okay? And he was a diesel mechanic before he became a home inspector, okay? And then here we have Brian, okay? Brian put in his testimony, I had the pleasure of being a student of Derek Pomeroy working on my home inspector certification. Derek's teaching style is fantastic. He really lays out the material. And this is what I really want to focus on in a fun, interesting, and easy to follow format, which I've been able to apply and retain. Okay, keywords there. Easy to follow, fun, and retain. Okay, that's our goal. We want it to be easy to follow. We want it to be fun because that's how you retain this stuff. And the more you retain, the better you do on the exam, and the more adept you are as a home inspector. Brian went through the live course. He decided that he also wanted to go through the entire online course, even though he didn't have to do his exam prep. Well, the other day he just scored 85% on his final exam in the online materials, and he really sounds like he's confident and ready to take that National Home Inspector exam. So I can't wait to see what his results are when he takes it. He said what impacted him most was how our teaching style helped him to retain everything so well. So those are the takeaways that I want you to have from this. So as you can see, we know what we're doing. I mean, who among you wants to be that next success story? How many of you think you can do this? Okay. Hopefully all of you are feeling that way, because I know personally you can't. Like I said, I was a half-blind ADD insurance agent who didn't know the difference between a hot and a neutral wire. If I can be successful, anybody can, with the right education, with the right guidance. So speaking of exam prep, while all the materials you get are enough to prepare you for the National Home Inspector exam, so that you can get your license, no one in the industry takes any time to talk about how to successfully take a professional level exam like the National Home Inspector exam. Yes, you're going to get a study guide, and you're going to get some guidance, some basic guidance on here's what to expect on the exam, okay? But nobody talks about what it means to take the exam, how the exam was designed, okay? Well, not anymore. We have an in-depth class where we get into the psychology of the exam. We get into the techniques for getting through the tougher questions, thousands of practice questions, so you can be assured you're ready to take that exam. I mentioned this in class earlier, the exam prep class, and how people come to us from other schools to take this course. They pay $5.99 to take this class, okay? It's a standalone course. But see, that's because they've already made the mistake. They chose another school, left over from the old days. One of them is a really big school, but I don't mention any names because I don't want to get sued by these other schools. But one of them is a really big school, and another one's a medium-sized school, and they have a set it and forget it mindset about their curriculum. Their curriculum was designed years ago, and it hasn't been changed, okay? And with that set it and forget it mindset, the student really suffers by spending a lot of money on their class, actually more than our class costs. They write the curriculum once, they put it out there forever. It's likely to have a lot of outdated material. Outdated is wrong, outdated is bad. Outdated material means you make mistakes, okay? I guarantee you, no one out there has the positive, upbeat, and entertaining style we do at HI-TEC to help you retain what you need to know too. So, we go through all the hard stuff, but we make it fun. That's the difference. That's why our webinar attendees tonight, just for you guys, okay, we're going to give you both the marketing and the advanced exam prep courses absolutely free. So when you sign up for our daytime or our evening live classes, again, they're all done on Zoom meeting from the comfort of your own home. You're going to get the online course for the 90 days. You're going to get the e-textbooks from the National Home Inspector Exam Board. You're going to get the complete and exclusive tech kit, the marketing course, the advanced exam prep course. And if you were to call us up tomorrow, spend 30, 45 minutes on the phone, buy all of this separately with the live training class being $24.99, you'd have to spend a total of, as you can see on the screen, $4,746. And that sounds crazy, doesn't it? I mean, it's almost like it's out of reach. And I understand that, right? Not everyone has 5 grand just laying around. And don't worry, we're not going to charge you that much. But what if you did? Just for a moment here, just imagine, what if you did spend that money and all it did was teach you enough to do 12 inspections this year in your spare time? I mean, think about that. At $450 per inspection, in your spare time, you'd make enough money if you spent the $4,700 to break even on your education. And then you'd have all this knowledge about homes, and at the very least, you'd be a more informed, capable home buyer and homeowner, right? How much is that worth?